Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're wrestling with a problem that I think everyone feels, information overload.
It's everywhere.
Right. But we're going to tackle it by looking at a solution proposed by a scholar focused on one of the world's most profound religious texts, the Quran. We're deep diving into the methodology of Maulana Wahiduddin Khan.
And it's important to say this isn't really about his specific theology.
No, not at all. It's about his powerful, almost surgical approach to organizing and interpreting scripture to maximize clarity and actionable guidance.
That's the absolute core of it.
Hmm.
Kahn's work proposed a radical structural shift in how we even approach scriptural commentary. He essentially looked at this vast library of Islamic scholarship and just said, we need to filter this.
Okay, so that's the mission for us today.
That's the mission, to unpack that filtering mechanism, his two-part vision for engaging with the Quran, and to really understand why he believed traditional methods had, in his view, drifted from the text's original essential purpose.
And our sources for this are the foundational excerpts that detail his whole methodology.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get into this idea of filtering. First, the work itself. I mean, this wasn't just a small essay.
Oh, not at all.
He wrote a massive, comprehensive interpretation, published back in 1981. The title is The Upright Remembrance in the Interpretation of the Wise Quran, and it spans 3 volumes over 3,000 pages.
It's a colossal piece of scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes it so unique isn't the size, it's the intentionality behind it. Khan was not trying to just add another brick to the library of accumulated knowledge. He was trying to distill the message.
So with 3,000 pages, what was the singular focus? What did he decide the Quran's real purpose was?
He defined its essential message through a triad of concepts: remembrance, admonition, and invitation.
Remembrance, admonition, and invitation.
Yes. And he asserted, really emphatically, that the Quran is fundamentally a book of invitation and guidance. It's intended to establish the relationship between God and humanity, to act as a kind of treasury of divine blessings, and ultimately to facilitate faith and reflection.
So it sounds like he's prioritizing the devotional and moral life of the reader
Yeah, exactly.
over, say, using the text as a legal textbook or an archaeology guide or something.
Precisely. And that prioritization leads us directly to the concept he focused on most intensely: tadkir, or remembrance. This is the central pillar of his entire method.
Tadkir. Okay.
Khan focused only on what he called the essential meanings and core implications of the text's contents. He was trying to strip away everything that obscured that original invitation.
And he didn't just, prefer this method. He claimed it was the method that the Quran itself adopted. What does he even mean by that? How does that change the way an interpreter actually works?
Well, it's critical because it shifts the focus from the particular to the universal. Traditionally, interpreters often focused very heavily on what's called asbab al-nuzul.
Which is the specific historical context, right? The circumstances of revelation.
Exactly, the reasons for revelation. And Khan argued that focusing too much on the historical where and when actually limits the verse to that specific time and place.
Okay, so give me an example. If a verse discusses a specific battle or a legal issue from that early community, a traditional interpreter would dig into all the historical facts of that event.
They'd go deep.
Mm-hmm.
But for Khan, tadkir, or remembrance, means you have to prioritize the eternal moral imperative of that verse over the temporary historical circumstance.
Mm.
So, for instance, if a verse is revealed during a famine and it instructs people to give charity, the historical context of that specific famine is, for him, secondary data.
The primary message, the tadkir.
Is the timeless moral obligation of selfless giving. Khan sought to highlight that enduring guidance, to make sure it wasn't buried under debates about, the exact date of the battle or the specific tax rate they implemented.
That makes the text immediately actionable for a modern reader.
It does.
So when you actually read his interpretation, what does that distilled style look like? Is he just paraphrasing?
No, it's not a paraphrase. It still has incredible intellectual rigor.
Oh.
His method is to present a collection of related verses first, then he clarifies their overall sort of generalized meaning.
He gives you the big picture first.
The big picture first. He establishes that broad context before extracting the derived ideas and the guidance.
Mm.
And his writing style is noted for being very literary, very smooth, so it's easily accessible. But underneath that flow is a profound depth of deduction and intellectual evidence. It balances that accessibility with absolute theological seriousness.
That seems like a really powerful way to make ancient scripture relevant to someone today who's, always pressed for time. They can get the core, actionable message without wading through 50 pages of historical footnotes. But I have a question.
Go for it.
If the whole tradition of Islamic scholarship has always incorporated history and grammar and law into commentary, just focusing on tadkir doesn't seem like enough to solve the whole problem, right?
You've just hit on the core challenge. Centuries of scholarship meant that the core spiritual guidance was now utterly cluttered with all this specialized data.
Okay.
So to preserve the mission of remembrance, Khan had to structurally fix the clutter. And this leads us to the absolute aha moment of his work, his radical proposal for two entirely separate divisions for handling the Quran's vast data set.
Two divisions. This is where he tries to solve information overload for good. So what's the distinction?
Division 1 is what he actually did in his book, the core interpretation, or tafsir.
Yeah.
This part is focused purely on remembrance and admonition. It is the streamlined path to spiritual guidance. It's the, what must I do and believe right now?
Volume. And Division 2. This is the really revolutionary idea.
It is. This must be a separate work, completely detached from the core spiritual guidance. He envisioned this as a dedicated volume, or maybe a platform, for all the secondary details, what he called the Quranic encyclopedia.
An encyclopedia.
Exactly. This encyclopedia is where you delegate all the technical, specialized research, the stuff that's important for scholars, but frankly distracting for the average spiritual seeker. And the list of things he wanted excluded from the core tafsir is massive. He didn't mince words.
That list is what I find so fascinating. I mean, we're talking about everything that historically made scripture so dense.
Everything.
The detailed historical context, scientific discussions, technical grammatical points, rhetoric, advanced theology, specific jurisprudence, even specialized fields like astronomy. All of that, he says, has to be quarantined into the encyclopedia.
And think about the implication of removing jurisprudence, or fiqh, from the core commentary.
Right.
For hundreds and hundreds of years, the job of the mufassir, the interpreter, was also to extract legal rulings. Khan essentially redefined the interpreter's entire role.
But doesn't isolating all that legal and historical framework, doesn't that risk turning the core interpretation into just a moral pamphlet? Without the necessary scholarly weight or legal application. That sounds like it would be a major point of contention.
That is the precise question his methodology raises. And his answer is, well, it's nuanced. He wasn't dismissing those specialized fields. He confirmed they were valuable knowledge.
Right.
But he argued that by placing them inside the core tafsir, you dilute the immediacy of the core spiritual message. He felt that the specialized details often lead readers, and even scholars, into these endless divisive debates that just distract from the primary goal of spiritual and moral refinement.
So he essentially created an institutional boundary, like a firewall to protect the soul of the message.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's take a hypothetical. Imagine a verse that discusses a complex rule about inheritance. That's a key part of jurisprudence. How would his two divisions handle that?
Great question. So in the core tafsir division 1, he would extract the tadkir.
The remembrance.
Yes. The overall moral and spiritual message about justice, fairness, caring for your heirs, and obeying a divine mandate. That's the behavioral guidance.
Okay, but what about the highly specific, complex mathematical formula that you need to actually divide the estate? The part that relies on technical grammar and precedent.
That goes straight into division 2, the encyclopedia.
Ah, I see.
It's valuable, it's connected to the text, but it is specialized information. It's required only for a specific technical application, not for immediate spiritual guidance. By separating the two, the seeker gets the moral framework instantly.
And the legal specialist can still access the rigorous details, but without disturbing that central conversation.
Exactly.
That is incredibly elegant. It's a knowledge management system designed to serve two different audiences, the spiritual seeker and the specialized scholar simultaneously, without one overwhelming the other.
It keeps the main thing the main thing. And that structural choice, the tafsir versus the encyclopedia, it leads directly to his ultimate conclusion about the Quran's real purpose, which is the profound so what of this entire project.
Okay, so what did he conclude the ultimate project was then?
He confirmed, very emphatically, that the project the Quran presents to humanity is not primarily the project of establishing a specific external sociopolitical system or any kind of structure in the world.
So not a blueprint for a state.
No. He felt that focusing on establishing an external system had dominated scholarly thought for too long and led to a kind of mission drift.
So if the goal isn't an external structure, then that shifts the entire focus from political mechanics to to internal condition.
Exactly. The true project, he argued, is the Quranic formulation of our own behavior and ethics. It is the refinement of our sulukana wa akhlaqana, our own conduct and character. The external system is secondary. The internal moral state of the individual is paramount.
Wow. That gives the structural argument real teeth. The reason you need the streamlined interpretation in Division 1 is because the goal isn't some technical, political blueprint that requires volumes of historical and legal footnotes.
Right.
The goal is immediate internal moral transformation.
The two halves of his proposal reinforce each other perfectly. The separation of the core spiritual message from that vast sea of technical and historical data, it makes the guidance accessible, powerful, and immediate. The moral code is no longer hidden behind an academic wall with specialized knowledge.
It's a remarkable insight into how knowledge is processed and absorbed, particularly sacred knowledge. And for you, the person listening, think about applying this principle to your own consumption of information. You are constantly dealing with information overload, whether it's industry research for your job, a new hobby, or just trying to stay current with the news.
Khan proposed filtering complex knowledge into two containers: the essential, immediate behavioral message, the tafsir, and the detailed, specialized technical research, the encyclopedia. How much are you trying to absorb right now that really belongs in that secondary repository?
What are you placing in your core tafsir of life? I mean, the non-negotiable actions, behaviors, and beliefs that have to be immediate and clear? And what technical noise, historical context, or specialized data are you letting overwhelm that core message? Data that might be better delegated to the encyclopedia, that repository of secondary supporting information? It's a real challenge to prioritize intent over volume.
It just shows that clarity is so often achieved not by adding more information, but by rigorously deciding what not to include in the primary text. We hope this framework helps you tackle complexity in your own life.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into a truly powerful methodology for managing knowledge.